and fence that relates to anything in the village or anything in the district or anything
No
as
landscape.
far as the other buildings on the site.
What about the
And
landscape?
and that's my problem.
Mhm.
What did you have to add there?
To me, it's meant to be of the landscape, and it is really in response to the site's landscape, which is a defining character of that site.
I would like to recognize that, because there aren't many people who think about the landscape as part of the character of the village.
Mhm.
I mean, that's your job as a
Mhm.
landscape architect, but I think that you've really done, in my view, you've done a fine job of dealing with the outcropping, and the view. Allowing people to see through is valuable.
Okay, well, I mean, just for my information, how do you see it responding to the landscape?
To us, it's not impeding the ledge. The ledge is still there, that rock outcropping is still there. The gates themselves, having a more landscape orientation, feel more like a garden wall. That articulation is often used on garden walls and that landscape orientation. And this is like landscape vocabulary.
It's horizontal.
It's part of it.
I think you see that type of structure in sort of cribbing in landscape, and it's like, where you have walls, retaining walls that are built up out of railroad ties or something like that. It just, I don't know, those gates just don't make it. The fence, I could live with. The fence is almost invisible, I could,
Well, it sounds like we're not going to agree, but at some point we need to move forward and have a vote. We're not going to get to consensus. We fundamentally disagree.
Agree, and, you know, I'll leave it up to the applicant, because the applicant has the option to either withdraw the application, or, if you want us to take a vote, take a vote, and we'll see how it.
But be
works out.
clear about what it is that we're voting on. What I think I'm hearing is that everyone feels satisfied that the gate at number 1 is compatible.
No,
Not everyone, not everyone.
no,
That
no.
three of the 5 of us feel comfortable with the gate. I thought that you were comfortable with this too.
I'm
this
comfortable
portion.
with the location. I'm comfortable with the location,
And
and
the
I
widening.
think, and I think the widening is an improvement, and I think, you know, and yes, because this is horizontal, and these are horizontal slats now, you know, that, yeah, that kinda goes with it, but I still have a problem with the whole idea of this exclusionary high wall that is so uncharacteristic of the district and the village.
and I
Okay.
guess, let me ask the question, what is this what you're proposing?
Current design.
Okay. And I noticed that on the section, on one side, it's narrow strips, and on the other side, it's wider strips. Which is the side that because this is, I would assume this elevation is of
The public
the
side.
street side,
Correct.
and so that's the wider board.
Yep.
And so actually, this is a little deceptive, because the smaller strips may in fact wind up covering some of the gaps that you see
They're aligned.
on the other side. They're aligned?
Yeah, so that the gaps are not overlapping. Yeah, the prior applications that we had, or when we came here,
Okay.
they were doing exactly what you're describing. This time they are not.
Okay. All right, and so, I guess this is all part of the previous application, so
Well,
we don't
it
need
is-
to go for a secret,
We've
right?
already done
Right.
seeker.
Okay.
What I was trying to get at was, are there elements, where are there elements where there seem to be consensus? I think, but perhaps not for you, I think that you are now feeling comfortable about the mesh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would approve all 3 elements.
Yeah. Okay. And here, it sounds as if you have concerns about the overall material and design. Some folks feel like opening the spacing is an improvement and shifting it back is an improvement.
Either or.
And you're out completely. So, is it helpful to,
I mean, we can take a vote on each of the various elements
That's
and
what
see
it's
how it
announced.
falls.
Let's break it up so they can at least get something done, right?
And just as far as the mesh goes, my concern with the mesh fence, even though I agree it's not gonna be as visible, and it probably won't be, it'll be more visible than this, but, I mean, somebody's gonna come up to us and say, well, you know, I wanna do chain link because you did chain link, down on Market
Yeah, but we
Street.
don't allow chain link, and
Not
that's not
chain
chain
link.
link, so.
No,
no
it's
worries.
not.
Well,
chain link.
oh, that's not chain link, yeah, okay, well, but,
Al, we have a
No, no,
metal
no,
open
no.
on
Like
the
the
dock.
gazebo.
Yeah, that's what made me change my mind, the
dock.
the fencing around the dock.
And there's some mesh at the Foundry
Like, there
Park,
couldn't
too,
be a
which
more
is-
quintessentially Cold Spring location than the dock, and we
And
have
if somebody came
fence
and
you can see
said,
through.
I want a
know,
chain link fence, we
but I-
could say,
I'm
no, but how about this beautiful galvanized wire fence that
That's
we
right.
have approved that you
No,
can use?
no, I mean, I
Right,
can,
it's
I
a
can.
precedent in another direction.
You know, what you're gonna do is, you know, fine, this is,
But it's not,
it's mesh fence, and I understand the difference between mesh fence and chain link. But that is, you know, you're gonna have people who will come to you and say, well, you've got chain link over here,
then we say no.
okay, well,
So Al, I think that
I,
one of the challenges here is making sure that the papering of this decision, in whatever way it falls out, it establishes clearly the logic behind the decision that was made at this location, takes into consideration all of the unique elements of this location and its role in the district, and explains the determinations that we made, the findings that we made that support our decision, that make it and would make it unlike another location, right? So that you're
I'm
not
writing down what
establishing.
you're
I hope you're
saying.
taking
I'm writing
notes.
it down in the minutes.
I hope you're taking notes.
I am.
Because there are,
Al's
look,
Okay,
there are going to.
I understand. I've been down this road before.
With me.
And so, let's take each one of these things one at a time, and what we'll do is we'll take a vote and we'll see how it winds up. All right, let's go by the numbers. So the first, fence 1 and gate 1, which is between the cottage and the garage. Do I have a motion to accept the application as submitted?
I would move
Hang on, let me just make sure I have the right document.
It's the one that says current design up in the
Yeah.
top corner.
Okay, so that's gate one.
Gate 1,
Gate, fence 1 and gate 1 at 5
5 foot.
feet. I would move to accept this as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Sean?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I vote no.
No,
Aye.
Okay, so approved. 3
I
to
missed
6.
who seconded, who
I did.
seconded?
Kathleen?
Okay, so let's go to,
That's
what was number 2?
the fence that you're holding up
Number 2
Is the
The
mesh
chain link?
fence.
Okay.
No, not-
there.
So,
The galvanized
fence
steel mesh
number
fence.
2, the chain link fence.
Stop it.
Don't.
Stop it.
That's
Chain
gonna go on the
link
record.
fence.
Don't do
Chain
that.
link fence, chain link fence.
I move to.
Okay,
Now you're gonna have people come in and say.
Exactly, if you haven't
Yeah,
done it that
see,
way, it
listen to the
will.
lawyer.
It is not a chain link fence. It's a galvanized mesh fence for the purpose of allowing visibility through a significant
well,
landscape view shed in the village.
That's right.
Okay,
That's the
and I
purpose, it's the
dis-
precedent
I
of
dis-
this
Protecting our
fence.
rock
it's not
outcroppings.
visible, it won't be visible because it's up on top of the rock.
The top of it will be visible, is precisely
Yeah.
because it will not be visible that it is an excellent application in this location. I move to accept that portion of the
Do I
fence
have a
as
second?
submitted.
I'll second.
Yes.
okay, Andrea will second.
I like the.
All right, before we take a vote, I will state my objections to the chain link fences I referred to. It is a wire mesh fence, I recognize that. I think that it is unlike anything else in the village. I think, you know, it doesn't relate or doesn't enhance or support the aesthetics of fences. I understand that it is a relatively low visibility fence, but I think that all we're doing is inviting people to now try and say that chain link fences is not any different from this. And so therefore I vote no on this. Sean,
I vote yes.
Andrea,
I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay. All right, let's go to number 3. That is the gate and,
Southern
yeah,
and
so,
this is where I ask if it makes sense, given the questions that have been raised. You've traveled, I don't mean that you need to travel back, but to come,
We could.
to lay out the wider spacing on the gate and also contemplate on the site where it is that it could sit.
Could we,
I'm sorry, Carolyn, how did you vote on the mesh fence?
She voted aye.
aye.
I would love to get approval. I was wondering if there's a way that you do conditional approvals, that we increase the transparency, we at least double the, so right now it's a 1/2 inch. At a minimum, there has to be a 1 inch gap between the boards. Is that something that
I'm comfortable with that.
would, it may be more, because the way that we'll work it out, but it won't be less.
At minimum 1 inch.
A minimum 1
Okay.
inch.
okay. And that's what we're talking about this over
Yes.
here.
That's correct.
All right, so the only change between this, between what was, what's drawn here and what is being proposed is the gap is changing from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch,
A minimum of 1 inch.
minimum of 1 inch.
Which gate number is this?
3,
3.
section 3.
And then for the location of it,
I didn't know if you needed time to look
that
at.
one we may have to look at,
Well,
give you
it-
an exact
yeah.
dimension. I know there's some, can at least get a couple of feet. I think we could probably get 4 feet out there without hitting ledge.
Okay.
But it might take a little exploring.
And so you can conceivably say,
Well,
move back,
and then I guess what we need to do is how do we know what we're voting on?
it sounds like the applicant is proposing voting on the design in its current location with an additional 1/2 inch gap.
Mhm.
And in the event that they want to move it back, then it would be, they would just come for a modification to an approved.
Or we could say that it could be between 3 and 4
that's what I
feet.
was going to suggest, is that you would
Oh,
allow a range of
right.
flexibility that's says it can be in the location approved or moved back X
4 feet.
Mhm.
feet.
Okay.
Yeah, we just did that with
5
Travis
feet.
and his strip ledge versus.
So
Well, and it's also,
on,
yeah.
I
on
mean, it's just
this,
bigger, right?
on this drawing is the alternate, and I would assume that this fence would come straight
The
to this.
entire assembly would move. You wouldn't just
Alright.
move the gate.
In line with the.
So this
Right.
would be, the alternate is this,
Yeah, it's like we get a zone.
Mhm.
okay. Do I have a motion on the, gate 3 as modified with the alternate location? And as well as the increase in gap?
I will move to accept it as modified.
Second?
Second.
Okay. I still think it's incompatible as far as the design goes, so I will vote no. Sean?
I will vote yes.
Andrea?
I vote yes.
No,
Oh, I vote yes.
Okay.
And then there's just the garage doors as the last, piece of the, so that they are changed.
What was
from
the change?
They're like a stable door now, which was something that this board constructed on a different iteration of this board. asked for the doors to have that stable look, it was a fifties
No,
gas station,
no,
isn't
no,
that correct?
no, that's not correct. That was what the applicant proposed, and we approved it.
Okay, I thought
No,
that
it
it
was never a
was,
gas station.
or it was a service
It was
station of
a
some sort.
mechanic's
No,
garage.
Mechanic's
no, it
garage.
was a garage.
It was just a garage and.
It was a
And
garage
guys-
for Downey Oil Trucks.
In a vehicle structure.
What would, wait, so, sorry, what did we originally, oh, we've
Those
never approved anything with these
We've
doors?
approved, these are
Vertical,
Yeah,
vertical.
we reviewed those doors.
Can we see the last?
and now
what
you
the-
want them to
what
be
previously was?
horizontal.
Back
Oh,
there.
Oh, this is new. Okay.
And this is just, there's,
I was looking at the page.
oh no, so this is, yeah, so this is the previously approved and the proposed design, which is to keep it,
Oh, but these had, the last design had glass.
they did have some
At one
glass,
point it had
yes.
glass.
Oh, that was the last one.
And we designed some very expensive bifold
Right.
doors that were around $200,000, which our, the owner asked us to,
Reconsider.
reconsider.
Hmm.
So we did. And so the new doors are they're just overhead doors, but they're clad in cedar and they'll be painted a sympathetic color with the cottage.
So they tip,
These are just roll up ones now.
Oh,
Just-
gosh.
Just regular roll up doors. But they're entirely clad with cedar, so they,
So the seams are obscured by the.
you don't see
Yeah,
any seam.
exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is that the width of the boards? I'm not, is that correct?
It's slightly larger so that we get equal boards all the way up the door, so it'll be, I don't think it'll be very noticeably different.
I'm into it.
I'm fine.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
All right, anybody have any thoughts to share?
I think it's one of the things that helps tie back the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Since I didn't like the gate, I also don't like the doors. I mean,
It's a
I'm really, as far, I guess.
Why?
Will these be painted?
Just because they mimic
Yes.
more
Yes.
the,
Well,
more that horizontal.
well, I guess, I'm just trying to think, I mean, these look like, slat roll-down doors, metal
Yeah,
slat roll-down doors.
like you have over the
That's the
bodega.
rendering. They wouldn't.
And so I guess my question is that, do you know that you can get a door like that?
Yes, Duchess overhead door will make it for us. It will, so it will be.
And I would assume that along the side, you're gonna have a channel that it travels in, right?
But it will be
That won't be
inside.
visible.
Huh?
It will be inside, so you won't see the channel.
You're saying that
But there's no
if
trim
you
around the
have,
door
if
at
you
all?
have, yeah, and you're gonna have the receiving channel usually.
Well, right now there's.
Because what is it, what
it's
is the channel
stucco.
attached to?
There's stucco, and so it will be recessed back in there, so, not, right now the openings are these masonry openings,
Right,
and so the door will be set in there, but it will be set within the stucco, so I don't think that you'll see that.
The panels that are there, just to be for the record, are stationary, they're fixed, they don't move.
They're not
They're not
functional.
doors at all.
right. But, are the channels visible from the outside?
There is no channel.
Just like any other garage door, you don't see those, you don't see the tracks on the outside.
Or for a roll-down door, typically you do.
But it's not a roll down, it's several sections, you know.
All right, so what you're saying is that this is, these are sections,
No, each section is like this big.
okay,
Correct.
but the
Yes,
slats are on top of it.
Correct.
Correct.
It's clad
Right.
in
It's
slats.
clad, so, it's not like a no, it's not like that, it's like a normal three-piece garage
Suburban
door,
garage.
but you don't see the three sections of it, so it just becomes like a.
When it's closed, you don't
When it's
really
closed.
see
Yeah,
the
three
sections.
sections, yes.
Okay. All right, any more questions or comments concerning the doors?
So then it sits back and the stucco comes,
The recess.
It's
yeah,
a recess, yeah. So it's just a clean opening like
Yeah.
it is now.
I mean, it sort of, in a lot of ways, takes the building back to where it began,
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
And it is a strong, it's a
In what
strongly
way?
horizontal building. Because it looks like a vehicular structure again, and not a fifties building pretending to be a stable.
I will move to accept the doors as submitted.
Second?
Second,
I'll start on this side, Catherine.
Kathleen, yes.
Second.
Oh, you said yes. No.
What did he say?
I say no.
Catherine.
Okay. Okay.
Aye.
How long have you been together?
Yeah.
Forever.
Okay,
Thank you.
Oh my god, we still have lights to do.
Sorry, we have two
Lights.
more things,
But I'm allowed to go.
But you're not.
allowed to go, thank you, Adriana.
Can I say one very brief thing before you leave?
Yeah.
Because I have appreciated, we don't often get to work with landscape architects. Most people don't pull in landscape architects, and landscape architects bring a particular, they bring considerations that folks don't normally pick up, so I appreciate it. I hope that in historic districts, there is space for innovation. I see this as an opportunity for innovation in the district, because all of the buildings that were around us were new and innovative in their time. So I'm hoping that there will be positive precedents that are established.
well,
That's
if
just
you're
my
gonna,
opinion, you don't have to
if you're gonna
come to
make
me.
a statement, then I'll also make a
But you-
statement. And that is that I understand what you're trying to do, and my feeling is that there is.
You want our
and
opinion,
there
boss?
is- there is an issue.
Goodbye.
There is an issue here. This is a historic district, and the things that we're supposed to do are supposed to reinforce the aesthetic and the feeling of the district. And you can do that with modern materials and modern design, but I have a problem with what was submitted here. So certainly there are plenty of examples where modern elements have been added to historic buildings, and it just blended very nicely, even though it was clearly a new addition. I don't
Here,
think
here.
that's the case here.
Noted.
Thank you.
Have a good job. Thank you. Oh, wait, we need more.
Windows?
Okay.
Having lights.
Wait, are we doing light fixtures or
31.
roof?
Light fixtures, let's do
Let's
first.
do like fixtures.
And then we get on to the entrance.
I need to take a break and use the bathroom. Use the next one.
We're doing lighting next? This is the next one.
Everyone's taking a
Let me
break.
put this away.
Step away, okay, here.
Oh, it is. This is my evening cup, the smaller size. It's of my friend's restaurant in California. Yeah,
Is it user friendly and easy to clean?
yeah, it has a little cap on it too.
So that rotates the clothes.
Yeah, the best overall thermos, I think you can at Old Souls, are the Stanley green one.
Okay.
You like push the button in order to drink out of it. If it's closed,
Oh, you can
it
drink it.
is,
Okay,
you
that's-
cannot spill it. You can put it in your bag, you can like,
I just have to see if it fits in my.
it does, it's a little tall, so it depends on how your
Yeah.
car shape, but it's the same cross section. But yeah, Luke has one that's like, and it stays hot or cold forever.
Okay.
I can show you some.
I know, and
Yeah.
So
I know because I have all of my
keep
moms at my
using
house.
paper cups all the time. I see.
I saw another one just today.
Yeah, the Stanley ones are really good, but they're, I mean, even when they're empty, they're like quite heavy.
Next.
Lighting on the guest house.
Mhm. Mhm.
What did you see today?
Hmm?
What did you see today? What did you see today? You said you saw it, it was
Another,
on the
another
board today.
enclosure.
Okay, so this is a modification to lighting fixture that was previously approved. Anybody have any questions?
I don't think we can even see this from the street.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard.
You have to walk up the
Yeah,
driveway and
because
stand at the gate.
the garage is wider than the house, and then you got the little roof over the porch there. So I don't think you'd be able to see it. I mean, you
It's
might be able to
possible.
see
You
the
know where you will
lamp
see it
across.
now?
Right,
Now
see
you
the
will
left.
see it from the chapel, cause now that area is
Yeah, they're
open.
300 feet away.
Right, it's not directly visible, but.
And they're clear, so.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Well, no secret necessary.
But
Alright,
I guess
do I
if
have
we're
a-
not,
huh?
if it's not substantially visible from a public right of way, do we even need to take a vote on it?
Well,
I do not
You-
think that this is visible from a public way.
well,
As I said, the
I
only
think
thing
it
that
is,
might be this fixture.
yeah,
That's the only
you're gonna see one of them.
Yeah.
But let's take a vote on it because I don't see a problem with
Okay.
this. Do I have a motion?
We finally agree.
I want to go on the record of being nice.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion on this application?
I'll move to accept it as submitted.
All right, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Okay.
Thank you. So now let's workshop. So I should fill this next.
Who seconded it?
Did you do?
Kathleen? My second?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah, Kathleen said, no, you
No, I
said.
Did I?
didn't.
Did I?
Okay.
Sorry. My brain has shifted on.
There's just been too many
Sorry.
votes. So much voting.
Okay,
Is
so
that
let's
in
go back.
or is
Here's
that-
the roof changes.
Oh, that's just, this is the demo, but it has photos if you see.
Why did we need a mock-up here in the first place?
Well, because I
They
have
were trying
drawings, I don't know
We
what.
couldn't figure out how to make it read, and we weren't sure how it would work, and
I don't know how you're gonna do it
This
without a
is-
column in it.
This is a work in sense, but you'll see how we do it with one column. Is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah, I mean,
So, this is a proposal, is what we're looking at doing, the second page is a
You're gonna-
is a enlargement. But I think what's important to understand in this relationship now is that, you can see the cottage structure, you can see the garage, you can see the guest house, you can see the patio in between. And part of the problem is that the original kind of outcropping from this, for the entrance for the main house,
for the mock-up
was at a
today.
diagonal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So what we're trying to do is
Square it.
organize and square it off and make it make sense. It is not a small challenge. And part of it, what does make it, I think, a little bit easier to visualize is if you look at this second sheet that has the detail sheet, on the lower right, there's a section cut through the edge of the roof in the Yankee gutter that's put in plan how it relates. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that you see how the slope of the roof and the Yankee gutter wrap around and will be continuous around this. So that right now, what it did is it wrapped around the entire
All the way
roof
around.
all the way around and then recombined. So it's gonna be this Yankee gutter that squares it off. What we can't do is to change the angle of the actual entrance wall,
right.
right? So what that means is in order to keep this eave at the same height through, then this ridge is gonna remain to a certain point, and then it's gonna tip down.
like the one in the
And then
corner,
it's-
like the muck.
And then it's
like,
gonna
well,
what?
like here.
Tip down, it's gonna be a slope.
Okay.
So, and also in this larger scale drawing, what we're showing, we're showing the double, beam structure that comes out from each corner out to a single central column.
right in front of the door.
But because you're coming from the side, because it's an orthogonal orientation, it is not in front of the door, because you're seeing the column and then the door and then the corner. And that's why going back to this first drawing is essential, and why everyone, builders, everyone's having a hard time visualizing this, because you're really going to be entering it from the side, not on the corner. That's what's the problem,
Right,
that's
but
the
it's,
problem.
the column is centered on that door.
Centered on that
When
door.
when you come up the driveway, the column is centered on the door.
Except that the way that you walk through, you're gonna be walking through either one of the sides.
When
So-
you,
When you
as
actually
a
enter.
resident,
That's right.
when
That's right.
one, as a resident,
That's right.
walks in,
That's
but from where you see it from the public right of way, the column is right in front of the door.
Well, when you look at it through the garage, you're gonna see that the door is actually to the left of that column.
Because of your angle.
Yeah, you'll never be able
you're-
to see
you're never
the column in
putting it-
front of the door from any angle out
Okay.
in the public right of way.
Unless you're standing in the courtyard, which the public will not be, right, okay.
And just to your previous question, why can't this be squared off and a door put on either side?
Well, this is an exterior wall. This is the actual
Right.
entry, right? So in order for us to actually square that off, we'd have to relocate the actual exterior wall of the house,
Which would
which is a
mean change the
huge job.
foundation.
I mean, it's because it's actually over, this is actually a vault.
Oh, I see.
underneath here
Okay. I
That
see what you
houses
mean.
mechanical
Right,
equipment,
right,
so,
right.
Oh,
you're really starting to
So even though you
get
have
extreme.
roof.
What we're
and
trying to do
structure-
is to make as much of a gesture towards
Was there-
regularizing the
Yeah, yeah, the
orthogonal
courtyard,
orientation as we can without, doing the expense of really redoing the entire
Right.
Yeah, it's not
entrance.
worth it.
That would,
And that's-
be nice, because
design
then you
makes
wouldn't
more
have
sense.
this point, right, of the roof coming out, but that's not really
You.
a possibility.
And it can't
That's what I'm
just
saying, unless
be
you're in the.
sliced off altogether, because then you wouldn't have,
Well, if you sliced it off, then you wouldn't be reinforcing this orthogonal orientation.
Right.
And that's what we're really trying to do, is we're really trying to make it so that you feel that new courtyard orientation and to tie these places together. And it's really about trying to tie the relationship of the cottage and the garage and the guest house with the main house. Because the main house is the dominant element, but it's the other.
right.
It's the spaceship that landed. So it's, so that's why we don't really want to, if we squared it off or truncated that corner off, then we'd just be reinforcing that diagonal.
Right,
approach.
right.
Yeah, it's complicated because the whole house sits at an angle.
And it has
It's-
strange jogs
I
where the
know
wall
what
is
you're
jogging through the
describing.
eave and then
Yeah,
it comes
yeah.
out and,
Okay.
it's,
Well,
and even, like, we've had a hard time, we can't take the previous architect's drawings and reuse them because they don't represent what's there, one, and if you look at the roof, the way the roof works, it's nonsensical.
There's a lot going on.
What would you
Yeah.
like from us?
So, I guess the question is, is that kind of change of roof line, going to be something that you think contributes to,
Well,
since
it
you're
ties
seeing
in-
it from the public
ties
right
into
of way?
this, these little funny, roofs, I don't
Mhm.
quite know what the
Right.
purpose is of these.
There's a door under that one.
There's a
Under
door
this
under
one,
that
there's
one.
nothing on this side, right?
There
Well, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, the point is that,
There's a
that
deck door under
this
that one, yeah.
modification helps this to relate
Mhm.
to another element nearby.
Well, and the landscape that's now being created there,
The courtyard and the
Space.
Right.
two other
Mm.
the
buildings.
outdoor space.
And I think it will also de-emphasize, there's this strange language in that architecture that includes the columns, like, what are those columns doing?
The octagonal
what were
columns,
they- what were
yeah,
they
what were they
doing?
thinking?
But by taking those away,
Mhm.
and by putting in, some kind of a post or something that relates more to the houses,
Right.
it actually de-emphasizes that as any kind of entrance. It's an entrance clearly, but it's not, this kind of manor house entrance. It relates
It's
to
a
the
motel.
lower gate. It relates to the lower gate.
Like a-
I was going to say Phoenix. but that's
What,
desert.
and
So
then how
does-
far
does
away
that
does this
answer
end
what
up
you're
being?
looking for? We're looking to, if we continue in this direction, because it's a fairly complicated thing to
Right.
sort out, both from a construction point of view and drawing, is this something that you would be
All right.
sympathetic?
Why don't we start, Sean, your response to his question?
My question is just how far does that column end up being from the door?
So this is the column.
Yeah,
It's about 5 feet.
That's the
Yeah.
door.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. When you're actually looking at the house and approaching the house, the column is never really gonna be
Mm-hmm.
in front of the door.
Right.
It's gonna kind of follow you around like the Mona Lisa, though, depending on where you're standing. It's gonna be either on the left or the right side of the door, depending on where you're standing in the courtyard, but,
Well, but also by reinforcing that line of the roof so that that is the dominant line.
Right.
I think that you really
Maybe it
are
looks
going
a lot
to
better.
drift over that way just naturally, because that's what it's telling you
because
to
it's really like
do.
the edge of the
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Makes
think
sense.
that I think it's a good solution to a
So at that corner, there's.
bummer of a problem.
I agree.
They're creating.
Any
Well,
other
it certainly,
comments?
it certainly
No.
simplifies what's there now, which is helpful.
The only
Yeah,
thing,
sure.
the only thing which, if I understand this correctly, these are the framing members for the roof, right?
No, they're not.
This-
So what happens is that this, outside of this line,
Mhm.
there are two things. One is, this rafter is cut on the opposite side with the bird's mouth. So it has that bird's mouth cut out, and then it has the Yankee gutter cut out, so it's already kind of compromised. But what we're trying to do is that the original porch had a flat area, and then it had the sloped area, which was outside of that flat area. So we need to keep that. We need to still provide a place for those rafters to fall and to be.
All right, but, are those the girders for the rafters?
Yes, so you'll have this hanging down,
Right.
you'll have a flat ceiling above it, and then the rafters will there,
All right.
will come down, and then there's the Yankee gutter.
Okay. I'll preface what I'm gonna say with the fact that I have no problem with anything that you're doing so far. This is a newer structure, so therefore you have a lot more leeway than an existing. My suggestion is that perhaps what you do is put a post here and a post here. And basically that you're then supporting this girder, and it winds up being cantilevered, but essentially it opens up this thing, which may or may not be important, but it's just something to throw.
Yeah, we looked at that, and the problem with that is that it actually then does this to you.
Gets in the
When
way
you're-
of
when you're-
people
when you're-
entering this
When
way.
you're trying to
Yeah.
reinforce that as the widest entrance.
All right, well,
From-
that's,
From the
you know,
structural, part of it is that we do need to go back to our structural engineer and say, okay, this is what we think could work, how can we make it work?
Yeah.
And she's gonna have to bless it, so,
right, and
if
I
we
mean,
have to
the
make that-
question really is that what you're drawing here will reinforce entry from this direction or from this direction.
right,
And all I'm saying is that I think you do have an option where you can sort of
right,
open up.
understood,
this.
understood.
And I think,
Carol?
I thought it was very straightforward.
Yeah. I think, Alex, in your suggestion though, you do kind of end up with 3 less usable sections though,
Mhm.
right?
Why?
Well, just because they end up being tighter spaces between the edges and like the way that it would end up being spaced out.
Well, I mean, it depends on what is this dimension that we're dealing with.
But look at the width of the door.
Okay, so it looks like 6 foot, give or take.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
ideally if we could,
And I mean, you can put the post here
That's 4.
and the post here. But again, it all depends on
Yeah.
what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that sort of cantilevering, especially since all it is just the roof loads immediately above it. So you're not talking about a hell of a lot of loads. And I have no idea what the girders are and how strong they are.
Well, those are probably gonna end up needing to be steel just to carry the load. because of the way the rest of the roof is structured. Because once we cut this ridge back, which is right now longer than it needs to be, obviously, because we don't know exactly where to cut it yet. Once we cut that back, that's probably gonna need to be posted. And that will probably have to then transfer to these sides.
Right.
So it's gonna be a complicated but hidden structure.
Well, it depends, because what you're talking about is doing a sloped roof with the ridge being here, right?
So this is gonna drain that way,
Right.
that's that way, and then this is going to be down that way.
Alright.
Because,
Well,
because this is sloped, this is level, and right now this goes down that way, and that goes that way, and that goes that way.
Right, well, this is sort of like a cricket.
It
set
is
on-
kind of like a
on
cricket,
this.
this part is like a
Correct.
cricket, except that it's level as opposed to being slope.
Dead cricket.
I like that, I think I'll use that.
Flattened cricket.
That's one that doesn't shed water, it does the opposite.
Kathleen, any thoughts?
Did you just call him Catherine again?
No, I didn't, but he did call Carolyn Carol.
I said Carolyn. It's
The
late
only
at night.
hesitation I have is I think that from the public right of way, it's going to be strange to have a column in front of the door, and I do think the users inside the site aren't, that's beneficial for the users inside the site, and that's what it needs to be beneficial for, but I think it's gonna be strange from the public right of way. Having said that, it's already strange from the public right of way, so I don't.
Isn't that already?
Yeah, so, I think getting rid of those octagonal columns is a plus. Squaring off the roof line so that it relates to the other buildings is a plus. And I don't know how else you would accomplish that without getting into the scenario where you have multiple columns. And so I think overall, it's an improvement, and I think it relates back into other portions of the building well too, so I'm fine with it.
But if you have to put steel into it anyway, is there any opportunity to have no columns at all, or you have to have at
That
least
would
one?
be really complicated, because then you would actually have
'Cause
to
then the steel
go
would have to
right
go all the way
back
back
into the
in.
main roof,
Right,
put
right,
steel,
yeah.
a whole new steel structure in there,
Yeah.
open up the roof, and what we're trying to do is to accomplish this without affecting the faux slate roof that's there, which is, in its glorious condition, not something we
mess
wanna
that up.
disturb. But there also there's a fairly complicated copper flashing detail that goes back from this original cupola back and ties into that, so we also need to keep that intact enough that we're not going all the way back.
The one other thing which you can do, and if you're gonna be using any kind of steel, if you come up with a real heavy post here and a real heavy post here, you could probably corbel this, and you're gonna wind up paying a price as far as headroom in these locations, but it certainly would eliminate any columns out in front.
Cantilever?
The problem is cantilever,
Yeah,
but the problem
reinforce
here
it
is that
with
this, we don't
really heavy
have the
posts.
option of coring down or pouring a footing that would post it where it would work as a moment post,
Mhm.
because it's a
There's a
vault
vault
under
under
there,
there.
so there's no, the ability to generate that much moment arm by super, is just not there.
It's true.
Well,
So
that's
so
where your
you,
post is gonna go then.
you need to think about it and talk to your structural engineer
That's
and
right.
make an application.
That's right.
Yeah, so
That's
just,
Yeah.
we just wanna not go
See
to
if
that
this is the
next
right
step
direction.
unless.
That's, Thank you.
Okay.
Is that all?
Oh, and then there's that.
Well, you did get a fence, right?
What's this?
That's the,
One,
That's
that's
the
the
demo.
change, that's the demo.
That's the demo.
All right.
so what, we're looking at Peter's shed and,
Yeah, so Peter is not able to be here tonight, but he asked us to look at it in his absence. And it just, Jeff printed it off, so it has,
Kathleen, did 2 Locust Ridge go away?
oh, that's me, that's my property, so I thought we'd do the other applicant first, is that cool?
Because we want to continue on into
okay.
what it's trying
So
to accomplish,
Peter
reinforce
came
the
to us,
rectangle quicker.
a long time ago about putting a shed on the blacktop area between his house and the house we just reviewed for the gate on Chestnut Street.
And I have a nice,
He had zoning issues where he had to go deal with setbacks
that way, to do it that way, so you
Or
have
the shed
And that's
location.
really, no,
Yeah.
He, when he came to us the first time, he requested you'll remember it was like a barn,
Right.
and we asked him, we looked at two of the items on the list, two of the other design alternatives and said, please consider these, and he did. And he chose instead one more like what we were looking at. The challenge is, and I didn't go to the ZBA, do you mind? Thanks. Much as we love you, it's been wonderful to see you.
It's the A-frame is the one that you,
Yeah, it's called A-frame, but this is what it looks like. So, but the challenge is,
But that's not the primary, so.
I know, so that's what the manufacturer provided him, but he does want the door that's oriented on the lawn facade. Here's the
On the side.
challenge though. We had talked with him about having it sit this way, so it looked more barn-like than
Right.
shed-like.
yeah.
The zoning board asked him to turn it the other way. So, and part of it is the flat area of land that he has to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So what will happen is that from the street, you'll see this. Because the doors will open, I don't know if they'll open toward his house or toward,
Well, they can't open towards his house because everything will fall out of that.
well, that's true.
So
I
it's
guess it
not
opens.
actually this model.
Well, it'll
It's
have, no,
that model, but not with
But
the
doors
side
on
door.
the, but doors on the
Like
short
this.
side, alongside.
The long side.
well, on the long side, so the doors will have to open on this side.
The doors will have to open this way.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but from the street, you're gonna get this.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
actually,
Why would it open to the back? Why wouldn't he open it to the?
Because
to
it
the
doesn't
side?
own, his property line ends there. It's just, remember it drops off, that's where the stream comes through.
What, here?
Here, I mean, why wouldn't you open it toward the backyard?
Yeah.
Because it goes, it's a slope
Because
that
there's
drops
a
down, big drop.
And the,
also that's
and the
almost
stream
so much
comes,
weirder.
the stream comes down here.
Okay.
So what we're assuming
Well,
is
he's
that he's
trying to-
gonna have two doors that are opening into this small area at the end of his driveway.
Right.
Right there.
Right, because if he puts it on the end, we get back to the shed, and he didn't think he had enough room to turn it this way. And then if he turns it this way, he's within the side yard setback, and the zoning board was not happy about that.
Well, he's already in the side yard.
And over here,
Yeah.
if he moved it this way, he'd be in this setback here, if he turned it long way.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, currently that's where it is. Currently,
From
he's
this
in,
property line, from this property line. If he turned it this way, then he's sitting in.
side yard setback line, front yard setback line, rear yard setback. I mean, all of them are shown over there, and he is in all of them.
Right, you're asking about turning it, right? If he turns it, he runs into trouble in this corner. That's why they
corner's not
ended up,
90 degrees.
that's why they ended up angling it the other way.
The corner is not 90 degrees, but how does that make a difference to him placing it this way?
All I can tell you is what the applicant told me on the
Yeah.
telephone, is that the zoning board was concerned about the side yard setback there.
Honestly, I'm looking at it now, I feel like it's probably, if the doors are going to be on the side and they are gonna be opening into that flat area, it's probably less offensive than if it were the other way around, with the doors opening onto the end of the driveway.
Why
So-
do you say that?
Just because I feel like in a way, you have to think about how you're like, in a way, it's just a little bit more obscured from the street,
Mhm.
these like barn, you know,
Well, what-
kind of barn
what
style
side-
doors.
Look,
The less
This-
of those
this
doors
picture
we see, the better, I
shows-
think.
this picture shows the barn doors on the long side.
That's where that's where he's intended to be. This is an inaccurate drawing from the company.
This is not an accurate.
It is not an accurate drawing. This is the orientation he wants.
So the question
Okay, so then
is,
the doors will be on this side.
Right.
Okay, fine.
So
Yeah.
what we had talked
So
about
he'll get a
last.
blank, there'll be a blank wall towards Chestnut Street.
Correct.
Yes.
And what we had talked about with him last time, we all, was having it long ways so that it looked more barn-like than shed-like.
Mhm.
But that doesn't seem to be
I'd
an
rather not
option.
see those doors and this dopey little,
Look, he's gonna paint it anyway.
yeah, those shutters.
Well, he doesn't have to have the shutters, it's custom.
Yeah.
Take 'em off.
Okay.
So if we don't want the shutters,
I honestly,
You know
I know
what-
this
you know
is,
what you do
I know
need
this
with-
is picky,
You
but I
do
would
need,
say
it as
no.
part of this application is his email, because that talked about all the specs that he was talking about.
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
we'll ask Jeff to print it.
Just
He
because
did-
we've told people not to put shutters on that aren't
Okay,
actually covering.
so the other thing to know, if you go back through, it's in the folder. He said, I don't care at this point. If
Okay.
you guys, this is what I picked that was similar to what you guys picked.
Okay.
Tell me what you want. We had, in the original submission, he came in with a gambrel roof.
Mhm.
This is the material. He came in with this one. We
Mhm.
said, please consider either carriage style or Quaker. The Quaker
It's very similar
is very
to this.
similar to this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This one has shutters, the Quaker doesn't. This one also has a slightly salt box roof, and this one is straight.
This looks like other
Symmetrical,
things we
right.
have in the village, yeah.
Right, which is, I think the reason why we liked the Quaker was when it was gonna be oriented towards the street, it looked more like a
Okay, well, all right,
domestic design.
I'll read to you his email, and he says, pick is type A frame, board and batten metal roof, that I am looking at. Not finished color choices, but he promises it's not gonna be pink.
Well, can't tell them no.
It could be fine.
Shed company will only release general specs and details for the sheds and not full plans, as folks would take those designs and build their own shed. So I'm giving you what the company is providing me. Barn Raisers is the name of the shed company, and design docs shows orientation I'm proposing with barn doors facing 9D. So that's what he is proposing. This
So
is
why
9D,
does
right?
Which is not what he said on the telephone, so we need to get clear about that.
All right. Side door and one window on the north side of the shed will also exist facing rear of my house. So he's putting barn doors here and then having another door facing his house.
Okay.
Which is at the top of that
Why,
slope.
Al, why is it shaped? Is that showing a door? Is that why that's like that? Why is it shaped this weird way?
With that, I have no idea with that. I think that was just something so that the draftsman can drop in the text.
Oh.
So side door,
Barn
one
doors.
window on the north side of shed will also existing facing rear of my house.
So this side,
See
right here.
page 8 in PDF for A-frame, 10 by 20.
Right here. So that shows the doors on the street, on what would be the gable
short
end, the
side,
street
yeah.
short side, and a window facing
Mhm.
his house.
Okay, but he's saying that the barn doors are facing 9B, so he is actually orienting it this way. And on the end, which would be the north side, he's got a side door, I would assume a 3-foot man door, and one window. 10 by 14 is the size that he's going with.
Okay, so the photograph is a 10 by 20, but there is,
Okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
So, I just have a question about the site. Is this all going to be on, so is this all gonna be sitting on blacktop?
yes, I think.
So
I
this
don't
is,
know about that. I don't think it's all blacktop. I think it's,
Wasn't it like sandstone or like bluestone?
Like gravel
or
and stuff.
something?
I think it was
So-
dirt and gravel.
Gravel.
It's gravel.
It's not
Okay,
hardscape.
so why don't we make a list of what else we wanna know from him and ask him to come in. And
Yeah.
he's been working with the zoning board for months, so let's get him, I'm happy to do a voting session on the fourth Sunday to get this out of the way. It's a shed.
This is
Yeah.
the thing, this is just the thing that's really bothering me.
What is?
Oh, there's no
Bottom?
foundation?
Oh, that they're exposed?
Particularly if it's gonna be sitting
Yeah.
on,
9D.
And
Yeah.
particularly if it's gonna be sitting on blacktop and not anywhere where you
Is
can
there some
plant
kind
around it or
of,
anything.
skirt board you could put around the bottom? No, as I noticed that too, I thought, it looks too.
Well, there certainly is no
Home Depot.
reason why it couldn't have a skirt board. But I would assume that, it's like that because that's probably lifted up with a forklift.
Right,
And
Well, but
pop
here in the
Yeah,
same,
Try to drop it, huh?
yeah, cause it's also exposed here.
yeah, so what if you just put the skirt board on it?
So why don't we make a list of the things that we wanna know from Peter and ask Peter to come in?
And actually, we'd like a more accurate representation of what he's proposing. If this does not comply with what he sent in his email, so clarify. What did he?
So,
Well, this and that and the other picture all don't agree.
Right.
okay, I didn't get to see these before, these came in at the end of the day,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
sorry that there's so
No,
much.
I know that, I saw them at the end of the day too.
Um,
I saw the time in the,
yeah,
in his email, so.
alright, so stack it up.
Last week, the CBA had a public hearing
Oh.
and they granted the variances for the shed.
Yes, but it's a different orientation than we talked with him about.
I know, I didn't know if
Yeah.
you were aware of it, I'm
Yes.
just saying.
Yes,
So now
Thank
we
you.
are the only remaining.
we are the only remaining hurdle. So I move to table this until our next voting session.
Which is when.
Second?
Can we
I'll second.
invite,
All in favor?
to
Aye.
table it?
No,
Yes.
Table.
table it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you slide it down a little
Yes.
further? Thank you.
Can we, we're meeting on the 17th to do standards editing. Could we have him come then or to the workshop on the 24th?
I'm happy with that.
And post either,
Yeah.
well, how far in advance we have to post a voting meeting?
Do we have a workshop on the 24th?
Let me get my.
Well, we have a standards review on the 17th.
Yeah.
Andrew won't be here though, so we'll be, are you gonna be here, Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay,
Still have
so we'll be quorum but down one. And then our standing workshop is the 24th, which if nobody requests to attend, we were gonna do more standards review.
Oh, okay, good. Got it.
So maybe we should just have him come on the 24th then.
I will ask him. I think the issue that he couldn't be here tonight is that he's taking a night class.
Oh,
So
so Wednesdays are bad.
In the
So-
shed building.
in shed building.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know that that's every week, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Taking a night class and dealing with
Okay.
the ZBA.
Let's take the stuff from, and let's put that in the.
Well, that's,
This is Peter,
yeah.
and that is the
This
guest
is
house. I mean the main house changes.
Amen.
So now, if I get hit by a bus, since the seeker review, every change on this property, because it's so confusing, has its own folder and it's marked on the outside and it refers back to the original application that it's changing,
Okay.
modifying.
I have some comments to make on this property at the end of the meeting.
I think that before we move on from
observations I
that
have.
topic, we have been almost continuously meeting with this applicant for 2 years
Mhm.
on a $30 application fee. I do think at some point, we're looking at new issues and not modifying an old application.
Mhm.
Well,
I don't know what that
well,
line
like
is.
the Modern House is certainly a new application entirely.
But
The
they
portico?
did
Yeah.
pay a fee for that, for the
Okay.
demolition. And they haven't put in an application for the new construction yet.
Mhm.
But like coming back for lighting, coming back a year after, at some point, I don't know how you draw a line, but I feel like we're giving a lot of service for.
Well, maybe
You know,
we should
the
say.
problem is, and the same problem came up with Ann's house on High Street.
Mhm.
If you have a client that changes their mind constantly,
That's true.
and then, or you get a price on something that they liked, and then they said, no, the price is wrong, or that you found something for them that they liked, and the manufacturer no longer makes it, or supplies the parts to it or something, you know, they're gonna be back, there's gonna always be back and forth. I don't know, maybe we just have a condition on our applications that this is good for like one application,
Mhm.
for unlimited workshops, but one application and so many revisions or something.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the same
Now,
exact
this
thing,
ticket is
actually.
good for,
Yeah,
you know?
however many meetings with our board,
Mhm.
because we are generously offering all these workshops to
Yeah,
get them
workshops
to a
are free.
point. Right, that's fine, workshop it to death.
And I think workshops should be free, because I think
Yes,
that
it
encourages people to come.
Right, and then they're much more organized when they get here,
Yeah,
and they want guidance, and that's good, we wanna encourage that, but.
How long does
you
the C of A last for, 2 years or 3 years? 2 years? And how long does the building permit last for? 2 years.
I think 2 years, yeah. The length of the C of A was made to match the
Length of
length of the
building
permit.
Do you have a referral at the bottom of that pile? Does it need to go into a folder?
Well, this is the one that Jeff sent out,
Oh, okay, it's the one you
5
printed at
Railroad
home.
Avenue.
I think we should just say that, you know, modifications to accepted applications are reviewed, you know, within the first, I don't know, 6 months or a year of approval, and then after that you have to pay another fee
Yeah,
that's another good
to
idea.
keep your application open.
right.
That seems, either approach seems reasonable to me.
Do we need to have can we pass that, or does the board of
Stick it to the
trustees
village
have to
board.
pass
Um,
it?
We have,
It could be in the design standards,
we're enabled, but we're enabled by our ordinance to set
to
fees.
set procedure and
But
policy.
but wouldn't it have to be in the ordinance, not in the design
No.
standards?
We
Where
are,
that,
we are enabled in the ordinance to set fees, and you don't wanna print an amount in the design standards.
Yeah, I don't think-
Not an
no, we-
amount, but.
Well, we don't have the application form in the design standards. I think this is just a modification on the application
I was
form,
gonna say, should we
Yeah.
update the application form on the
which is
website?
easy.
That's easier
I
than
mean-
doing
The,
a
the,
permanent
the
doc.
ordinance allows us to issue forms and guidance concerning procedures before our board.
So let's update the,
I will
application form.
review the ordinance and
Yay,
the application
Sean.
and
thank you.
figure it out. 6
Thank
months?
you, Sean.
Do we like 6 months?
6 months is reasonable.
Um,
That gives them like,
So
you
they
know,
get
5 more
unlimited,
meetings
they
to play
get
around with.
unlimited, visits with us for 6 months after making an application.
I'm gonna move over here, cause now I'm the applicant. I,
Now the real problem happened.
now the real problem.
But let me just say
That's
one other thing.
hyphenated.
Better
In
not
the
be a
case,
fence.
in the case of what we just reviewed, this fence situation has been going on for a while. I consider this to be, they are responding to our requests and concerns about the fence. So even if that's been something like that where they have to keep coming back because we're reviewing it more and more, I don't think that that should be, if that extends beyond 6 months, they shouldn't have to pay to do that more, but a totally new situation being added to it, you should have to pay another fee.
Or
Well,
a
let's
modification
think
of a
about
previous-
it, and then at our
Modification
next
of a, well,
meeting, we could,
well, look,
Yeah.
if somebody comes to
Flush
us
it out.
and we have an unresolved situation at the end of a meeting where they have made an application, you know, they could either withdraw it or we could vote on it, and
Mhm.
if we didn't like it, we could vote it down, and then force them to make a new application. So it's, I
So,
don't know.
my children's bikes are all over my porch, and we look like clampets.
yeah, I have that.
So I wanted to put bikes in and garden supplies, cause right now I'm taking this lawnmower up and down the Bilko doorsteps,
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
into the backyard. I was granted a variance because this was an institutional property here and it was a school, where the
Mm.
Hoffmans are.
Mhm.
So I have a 5-foot fence, a 4-foot fence back, on the Hoffman side, I have a 4-foot fence back to the gate,
Mhm.
then a stretch of 5-foot fence, and then 6-foot fence all the way around to the other gate. So the backyard is,
Where are the gates? I don't see the gates.
next to the house.
Oh, I see
here
the
and
gates,
here.
yeah.
The
Okay, so-
property line, however, continues about 15 feet down the slope. So, I need, anywhere that I would comply with side yard setbacks, the shed will be in the middle of the yard. So I need to ask for a side yard variance. I had wanted it originally to be over by the grill pad on the opposite side of the yard. The grill pad is set in concrete and it's just a tiny bit too small to fit the space there to fit the shed. But the grill pad is centered on the stone patio, so to move it seems strange.
Do we have a referral on this yet?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at the photographs, over in that back corner, there is already a shed that belongs to the Hoffmans that comes over my property line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And the shed's not going anywhere. So then I had originally thought of it as sort of consolidating in a service court over here where the garbage
Mhm.
enclosures were, but given the grill pad issue, I thought tucking it where, on their side where the shed is, it's got limited visibility from the public right of way because of their shed. This is what it looks like from Main Street. You'd see their shed, not my shed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty far back from the public right of way on Cedar and on Locust, so you get very limited views of it. And there's a garden bed there, a raised bed right now that is exactly the size of the shed, which does not grow well because of shade. So my thought is to tuck the shed up against their shed.
Fight shed with shed.
Fight shed with shed.
This
So-
is, can I ask something?
Mhm.
Is this, how big is this, right here?
There's a window right there.
Oh, there's a window right there, so
That's
if you
my
put
dining
this against that, you'd be blocking the window. I just saw it 'cause the basement entrance
Looking
was
at
there.
it at Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, eventually, my dream is, since the Bilko door is collapsing, my dream is to come out, there's a window that ends sort of right here, to come out this much and capture a basement entry that's part of the structure,
Mm.
Oh, that's inside the house.
and then go up on the second floor back here.
Mm.
So even if there weren't a door there, I don't wanna put something there.
Right.
Hmm.
And how tall is this thing?
It's, not, 8 feet tall on the back side and 7 feet tall on the front side.
So it would be sticking up like 2 feet over the fence? But
Yeah, on
you
the back
wouldn't be able to
side.
see it because the garage is in the way.
Well, you wouldn't see it from Main Street. You'd see it from, if you look back from the Cedar Street views, you'll see it from Cedar Street. You'd catch a little bit of it from Locust Ridge.
Oh, I see, there's the back of your house.
I would like to not put the crossbar, or I don't like the hardware. So I'm still looking for hardware that I want, but that's not gonna be visible from the plug right away anyway. So I guess what I'm asking you is, are you cool with what the amounts of it that will be visible from the public right of way, and are you okay with the location of it?
Anybody have any questions?
No, I mean, it just seems like the most reasonable place to put it, it's up against the other shed, it's not gonna dwarf it, so.
Do I have a motion concerning seeker?
type 2.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Oh.
Aye.
Okay,
Hi.
there's a second half to the application.
The whole application.
It's still type 2.
Okay, yeah.
We just did it. All right, do I have a motion as far as the shed goes?
I would move to accept it as submitted, I think it's
Do I have a second?
perfectly appropriate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I missed, what was the motion?
On the shed,
Motion
to
to.
approve the shed,
As submitted.
as submitted. All right, let's move on to
It's not, it's much smaller than, right, it's
Okay.
8 by 4.
It's-
Yeah, sorry.
Who
let's-
seconded
No,
the?
45.5 inches
Carolyn.
is less than 4, what? Yes,
Carolyn.
I seconded.
Okay, the other part I don't need approval for, but just to cover my thumb since I'm on the board, I wanted to show you what I'm doing with the door. I have a piece of crap screen door that needs to be replaced. It's gonna be like the door I have now, but better quality, same hardware. The interior door, is held together currently with tub caulk, and a lot of wood glue. So, but I love the door, it's a beautiful door underneath it, so Steve Volota's gonna take it apart and rebuild it. Also, that saves me having to change the surround, because it's
Mhm.
it's not height
Not
design.
standard size,
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so the
repair and
replacement screen door that you're proposing is this.
It's a screen and storm.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Wait, so it's a replacement in, wait, so your door's being repaired?
So there are two doors that are being addressed. The interior, the primary door is being repaired
Right.
and restored. I'm gonna take that trashy gold off the bottom and repair around where the doorknobs have been,
That's not gold, that's
some
Kick
brass and kick plate.
brass kick
You
plate.
might regret removing that kick plate,
Well,
but
I'd like to get one that's a little less nasty
sure.
Well, I'll just have them do a finish on it, a brush finish.
and brush finish,
Yeah.
that's true. And then the storm door is gonna be
So-
replaced with a better quality storm door, the same design.
But it's a different door. The existing door is a straight repair. This is really a replacement, but a replacement in kind. But just to cover Kathleen's butt, do I have a motion?
Yeah. I move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the,
Approving Kathleen's butt coverage.
Nice,
I approve it, I think it's totally fine.
And who else is in
However,
favor?
yes.
I do dispute that this screen door is a replacement in kind, because it's a different design.
okay,
No, exactly.
How is it different?
Well, this door that you have here is I mean, it's a wood door replacing a wood door, but are the proportions all the same and everything?
It's pretty close.
The glass opening may be longer.
Yeah.
It was intended to be as close as I could get, but in a better door.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's totally appropriate,
So-
but I don't think that it's a replacement in kind.
okay. So,
Let the record show.
All right, let the record show.
Well, voting,
I am
we're
repairing it.
voting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. But I went to a zoning board and I understand why sheds are so hard for people. I get it.
Well, this is the
Took
thing
my-
about sheds, is that
took
you
my
you want the shed to
agendas.
be on the property line. I mean, I think that that's the most appropriate place for a shed to
Well,
be,
this
is on
is,
the
this
property
is, this is a
line.
thing that CUC has been dealing with. They've been dealing with that, not only that, but also garage locations.
Right.
Because garage locations, if you comply with the zoning, I mean, they're in the middle of your backyard.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
Of course it's so
But
stupid.
also, just now, I had to turn in, I can't use my drawing. I have to make Hartford make me a drawing like Peter had spent.
The local architects are making bank.
Why couldn't you couldn't give your drawing to the planning board?
To the zoning board,
Why?
because it doesn't show the setbacks.
It doesn't,
I need to give a proper,
And you have to have an architecture engineer do that, or a land surveyor?
I
I
had to
could
have,
probably do it if I spent time on it.
I had to have.
Which would be a lot cheaper.
I know, but what time do I have?
Wait,
that's true.
you can't just draw it over your
I'm gonna try that first.
survey?
I'm gonna try that first.
Do you have a copy of your survey?
This is done from my survey. My survey is so out of date because of changes on the site that I took my survey and hung it on the window with paper, so the
Oh.
light came through, and I traced what
Queen,
exists.
I would have lent you a light box. That's terrible.
It is a light box.
It is a light box. So I drew in what's different from what's on the, but now I have to show the setbacks. Anyway, we have the Parsonage Street questions are complicated, and I don't know how much brain power we have at 11:15.
I think
I'm dying.
I think I clipped my agenda to the application.
Well,
No, this is the agenda. So if your agenda is
Mine.
nice,
I don't have minutes to review tonight. That's gonna happen at the next meeting.
All right, well, let's go over the parsonage thing. We got an email from Aaron Wolf. He asked the following questions.
Oh, you printed it, okay.
Does the barn have historic value or material that you would like to preserve?
We don't know.
Well, the question really is that how much can be preserved based on what they want to do?
The things that I think are important to preserve there, in my opinion, is the mass, the
The
profile
form.
of the form of the
Yeah,
building,
Yeah,
and that it retain its ancillary / agricultural character. I would be personally
it's
totally cool
rusticness.
with a rustic tiny house on that spot, if that's the direction they're going, because I think it brings life back to what is a missing tooth on that block. But I would like, if there is new construction there, I would like it to be a reminder of what had been there.
Okay, but it's, there.
Not I would like it to be, I think that would be,
None
meet
of-
the design standards.
Yeah, none of the existing material can really be preserved.
Well, we
that
don't
thing
know
is,
that.
that thing is so roached you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, and, I mean, looking at the photographs, A, the structure is inadequate for occupancy. And B, most of the siding was in pretty poor shape. I mean, theoretically, there may be some framing elements that they could reuse, but they not in the current configuration. All right, so that's question number one. We'll go through all the questions, then we can go back and see if we want to state something. Does the location of the barn have historic value that you would like to preserve
You mean on that lot, on the lot as is?
on the lot as is? Yeah.
Well,
Because one of the issues that they're dealing with is that it doesn't comply with the setbacks.
Oh, it needs 6 variances or something like
well,
that.
having said that, it's located where it is for convenience to a carriage or a car,
Right.
and that is part of what defines its character. It would be hard for a residential use to sit that close to the sidewalk, I think. If it were to be moved back, I would be inclined to say not to, as we did with Ann's house, not to the depth that the code calls for, but to a depth that meets an sort of an average on the block. You can see
And
why
there
people
are-
wouldn't want to live right on the sidewalk like that.
There are other houses on that side and that particular block of parsonage that are quite close to the sidewalk.
Yes.
Not the house immediately next door, which is a craftsman and set pretty far back, but the house next to that
Yeah.
and the house next to
And
that.
across the street or close to the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's right, they're
We have
close
lots
to the
of,
sidewalk.
and there's other houses elsewhere in the village that are very close.
Yeah, but I
to the
mean,
sidewalk.
in just
Yeah,
the
James and
immediate
Julie's
context, it's
where the
also
street
true
is.
that they're close to the street.
That's
When you
mostly
look at the,
along Main Street.
remember the Sanborns that you sent me, the 1912 Sanborn? The 1912 Sanborn shows that property going like for what would be like 6 house lots going uphill, all being one property.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not in 1912, it's another map that I saw. And it said Ferris on it, and it was like, it was like one big plot. And then the 1912 shows where Judy Baltich's Craftsman house is back to back with my house, that there was an ice house there. Now, why was there an ice house there? There was something that they had to ice. Most likely either ice itself or things like dairy products. So having something that recalls that kind of agricultural feel, I think
I think
is
that's
like,
important.
Can I take a couple
Okay.
of steps back and just say,
yes.
Let me,
Well, but
let
it's
me
related
read
to
out,
these-
there's one more question that they asked. The applicant's lawyer represented that HDRB stated that the barn is more or less historically not a factor.
Which
The
we did
lawyer
not say.
said that?
Which we did not say.
The lawyer wasn't here,
Is
P.S.
that correct?
I answered that.
Okay. So,
we
so
have
those
not-
are the 3 questions.
we have not, we had one workshop
Right.
session with these 2 people. I don't feel comfortable replying to this email with answers to the first 2 questions because in every other situation where somebody has made a request to tear down a building, it's incumbent upon them to bring the research to us talking about the historical significance of the building.
Excellent.
So while we just living here know some things about the building and while we have the context for its situation on the street and everything else, we have not seen an application.
Yep.
And until we see an application and until the applicant brings us the information that they've gathered from maps and drawings and everything else, this is, it's
Non-starter.
It's a waste
it's
of time.
it's a it's not
Yeah.
it's not a waste of time. I'm not saying it's a waste of time,
I
but
think
it is an inappropriate question for us to be on the record answering.
Well, you could just reply to Aaron stating
Yes.
that we can't, they've not submitted any
We have
material
not
to us to
reviewed
work with,
any historic information about this
We
property
can't
because
answer.
we have not received an application about it.
Well,
Well,
we
no,
met in
I-
workshop, and we had concept drawings, but no supporting material.
Yeah, they didn't bring any research about the property.
Yeah, it's
Right.
incomplete, so we
So-
We
can't.
did, but we did, in fairness, he showed the video, and Al, I remember you having a conversation with him about, well, there's no foundation, and the joists are insufficient to do
Mhm.
this, and
Mhm.
you're like, so we did generally have a conversation with him about the condition of the building, but it was no determination of the building's fate by any means.
Right.
And it was no
they-
determination of what aspects of the building we would require to have preserved.
Okay, so, I will respond to Aaron saying that, we, in all fairness to the applicant, can't answer these questions because they have not done any research on the historic aspects of the building, that the applicant needs to do in order to, as part of an application.
And you can refer them to the new code, the section on demolition, and what it is what types of information an applicant needs to
Mhm.
provide.
All right, well, are they proposing demolition?
I have not, Michael has been at the meetings, why don't we,
They talk that as though the building is not sustainable to be renovated anyway at all, and they're gonna build something new, and one of the many things that have been going around with the ZBA is dealing with the various setbacks and lot coverage, and at the last go-round, the owner said that, well, he would be happy to move the new building wherever ZBA said he needed to move it.
Well, and see, that's predicated on the assumption that it's going to be a residential use.
right,
And,
don't even know that.
and that
That's
is,
their stated intention.
right,
Well, it's a zoning, it's an R1 district.
Right, but just because something's being used just because of the use of the building as a residential use, it doesn't make it a residential building.
yeah,
You
but I mean,
can't-
the reason.
You can't have a tax lot with only an accessory building on it.
But we do.
No, but we can,
But
but
we
we
do.
can
That's the
allow.
challenge.
No, but under they probably
Yeah.
existed before the code.
No, that's one of the questions that they've been researching is when was this building orphaned? Pre-zoning code, post-zoning code? It is unclear, correct?
No. It
No?
is-
Now they found it?
According to John First, as I understand, he
Mhm.
said that when the zoning code came into existence in the 1960s, that one of its goals was to
Deal with this barn.
deal with non-conforming lots, and so that with the zoning code views these two separate tax lots as one.
One zoning lot, but not one tax lot. Yes, that's right. And that was to make people conform to the 75-foot width thing that nobody can comply with in the village practically.
Right, they didn't go there, but that was the point. The owner's attorney is saying that, and because of that, then they can no longer avail themselves of the small lot exemption. So their attorney is saying, no, it really is two small lots, which would let them take advantage of that exemption.
To give more
Oh,
flexibility
I
and
see.
variances.
Right.
Which would probably be the smallest
So-
small lot in the
So
village.
Al, here's my concern. Yes, Sean's concern, yes. And I have concerns about two other boards opining on the appropriateness of the demolition of a building in the district. And having that conversation without us in the loop and without an application requesting such.
What
Well,
Well, I mean, pretty much this email is requesting that, being that we're in the loop on it.
All right. That and also, you have to remember that basically, if they don't get zoning relief, then there's really no purpose in demolishing the building.
There's no
So,
purpose in talking us.
There is some sequence to how an applicant really needs to get determination.
But it sounds as if the determinations are based upon the proposed use, and the use assumes demolition.
Agreed, and, you know, certainly if it's residential, then the existing building would have to be demolished, so, I'm agreed with that. Now, realistically, we can't opine on whether or not the building should be demolished, because we have no information on the historic, nature of the structure.
I think what we ought to tell.
But we do
I
know that
think
it's
what-
within the district, right?
I think we
Yeah.
ought to tell
Significant
Aaron
enough to be within the district.
that if the,
There's a lot of non.
if the
lot-
if the owner is contemplating building a new building, because this building cannot be rehabbed, that they should look at the part of our code,
Mhm.
the Historic District
Yes,
Code,
demolition.
on demolition.
Right.
And alert Aaron to that, because Aaron may not be aware of what our code says.
Yeah, true.
Well,
And also, I don't think that we should have to be put in a position where we are approving a demolition and reconstruction of a building that is being moved around and situated on a lot to conform to zoning, as opposed to the other way around, a
In
zoning
the district,
approval
yeah.
being, I mean, if they're gonna be granting a variance, then they should be granting a variance based on the siting of the building that
Right.
we deem to be most appropriate, not the other way around.
Well,
yeah.
well, except, you know, if there were a building that were reasonably intact and that we really wanted to save, and somebody said, you know, but, you know, the only way I can really use this building is if I move it 50 feet over here, we'd probably say, yeah, go ahead.
Potentially, but that's not this situation.
No, that's not the situation, that's true.
I think at this particular point, all we can do is we can, in my email to Aaron, I am going to tell him that demolition of the existing building is not a foregone conclusion. We don't have any information about the historic
The
nature.
applicant has not met the requirements, the applicant hasn't done the due diligence to
The applicant is not an
demonstrate.
applicant. The applicant has not applied to our board.
Has
Yes.
not
The
applied.
applicant
Yes.
is a stranger who we had a
They're
conversation
not a
with one
stranger,
time.
we've met him.
The applicant is not an applicant.
I was
It's
not
just
as
a-
naive a person
a
as I
couple
ever
of
met in
dudes.
my life.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll do that?
That's pretty cold.
I actually did see the applicant party last week, but that's neither here nor there.
But he's just a guy at parties, not an applicant.
I was like, who's that dude?
20 the Boulevard, Carolyn, what do we need to do? What's the concern is?
The concern here is that we had a condition to our certificate of appropriateness that they do some more archaeological work. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I passed by the property several times, both on the boulevard and on the Scenic Hudson path that goes from Scenic Hudson's Foundry parking lot to the railroad. And I've seen work going on at the Campbell house, the 20 the Boulevard. And there's like a big excavator there, and it's digging up whole bunches of stuff. And then I saw from the other side, I walked up the hill slightly, I was still on Scenic Hudson property, and peered in, and I saw that there were great big mounds of dirt, which are roughly where one of the new buildings is supposed to go. Now, and by the way, the 1910 addition on the existing house, that's already gone,
Mhm.
okay? All the old asbestos siding is gone. All the old clapboard that was underneath it is gone. All you see is the frame and the nogging, and the brick nogging.
Well, and it's wrapped, some sort of plastic covering.
Oh, they probably have wrapped it since, but you know, it was, the last I saw it was not yet wrapped. But the area that they were supposed to scrape to determine if there were any outhouses or wells seems to either have been excavated into or has all this other dirt piled on it. So I don't recall ever seeing a report from their archaeologist, and unless they just sent it to Butterfield Library and Putnam History Museum, and maybe to our building inspector, but not to us, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if it exists, I don't know if they had that done.
And it was a condition, as I recall, it was a condition, it was not a seeker element, it was a condition of our C of A,
Yeah.
which he probably never read.
But is there any reason why the big pile of dirt over the point of the part that they're supposed to be excavating prevents it from being excavated and researched after they move all the dirt?
That's not what I'm saying. I don't know how far the excavations have gone. From the vantage points that I was looking at, I couldn't tell exactly where the excavations were. But I presume that they're excavating for foundations, right? And certainly, some of this dirt is in a place that might be kind of over it. So if then they scrape that away, do they just scrape too deeply? Because they, oh, well, we're gonna
So-
dig here anyway and just,
So what do we want, what's the outcome we want you to do? We wanna contact the building inspector and say, has this happened? Are you aware?
has this happened? And contact the applicant, contact the owner and saying, where's the report?
Okay.
You want,
But I'm really
how
afraid
about
that this
if
is
you
something.
write the memo to Aaron, I'll write the memo to,
Warner.
Marion.
No, read it to Warner. Read it to Warner, cause it's clearly in his court right now. He shouldn't be granting permits if they haven't met the,
Well, we don't know that they haven't met that. My first question is gonna be to them, saying, we noticed that, there has been some excavation activity. Have you guys,
Finished your
complied
report yet?
with the requirement for, the archaeological?
I
Because
wouldn't
it's
even
a-
mention we've seen activity, cause I just personally, I don't wanna kick that hornet's nest.
Why?
well, it's visible from a public right of way, that's why
Yeah.
we review it.
I don't know, cause it's already been a little tense.
Well, at least,
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
why
but
bother?
we're talking
It-
about,
it's- I would just ask if they've done the report, just leave it at that, and then punt it to Greg.
no,
No?
I'm gonna kick the hornet's nest.
Okay, go for it.
Mary Ann Sutton and
David
David
Watson.
Watson.
David Watson. But by the way, I think this is gonna be another situation where it's our
I have been right.
building inspectors, like, oh, didn't they already do that? Oh, yeah, they did that in their secret process, yeah, next, Oh, but this is just for a demolition permit, or this is just for,
So,
excavation
On
permits.
that, I did, and when I put in the monthly report, I did ask to be on the agenda. Fran was in the office when I was going through applications on Monday and witnessed the conversation about the fence for,
Nothing.
Siglo Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly marked on the drawing that it's 4 feet 10 inches. And I brought it back to Jeff and said, so this is over 4 feet. Oh, I didn't even see that. So Fran was in the room for that conversation. I said, this is kind of a small example of what we've been trying to communicate to you guys about process, and this we need some help here. And she said, well, I think we should call a separate session. So yes, that's what we've been asking for. So I haven't heard back from anyone on the meeting last night, but we did make the request again. But that, that situation was totally avoidable.
Mhm.
And, it puts us in a position of, you're beyond your purview. Yeah, but you just, yes, but it's also not, we also can't approve something that we know to be, without comment, we can't approve something that we know to be,
I disagree
meeting
with that. I
variance.
think we can approve whatever we want to approve, and if there's a problem with zoning or planning or anything else.
And then they have to come back to us, so we're wasting our time the first time we approved it.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that ultimately, under the old system, the building inspector was supposed to be the traffic cop. He was supposed to send them to wherever they needed to go next. Now, we don't have a building inspector, and realistically, I don't think that we can expect the clerk to perform the duties that of traffic cop. It used to be that the applicant was told, all right, this is who you go to next.
right. This we know. So the point is that they're aware again, Fran is in agreement, Fran at least is in agreement that perhaps this isn't working and maybe we need to revisit. I think that's a conversation we need to press.
Right,
Progress.
all right. So as soon as they tell us that they're ready to talk with us, I think that we should make an effort to sit down with them and explain to them problems that we're having.
Okay, I tried to go to the meeting last night, I didn't have anything left at the end of the day, sorry. I've been woodworking with Girl Scouts for 3 hours, I just didn't talk to anybody.
God.
So are we done?
Do you wanna have a motion?
I'll move.
To
Second?
adjourn?
Adjourn.
Can I send
Aye.
around the email to Aaron before I send it to him? He's out of town anyway, so it's not hugely,
Okay.
Sean, you second?
yeah, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm seconding, I'm approving review of an
Aye.
email.
Adjourn, aye.
Aye.
How was the
Aye.
code update demolition thing? Anything scary?
I didn't make it there either,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Okay.
But that's all, they were referring to properties outside of the district.
Right.
All right, so give me what I
They'll
need to
make you a
process.
travel